I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Erik Allen. Erik is the founder and CEO of Erik Allen Media. He's an entrepreneur, and he's the host of two podcasts, Top Rated MMA and the Erik Allen Show. Today, I want to find out from Erik, do we have any purpose? Is there any hope for us at all? Or are we just specks of dust flying around aimlessly with no hope and no purpose? Join me today in my conversation with Erik Allen. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Erik Allen. Good day, sir.
Man, thank you so much for having me on. It's super honored to be here, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on, Erik. I really appreciate taking the time. I know a little bit about your story, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what industry are you in now? And what is it that you're doing now, whether it's full-time or part-time?
So I do work a full-time job. I'm in the swag industry for my full-time job. And then I
What
host
what is
two,
the swag industry? Clothing?
clothing, cups, backpacks, stuff like that. And I work for a SaaS platform. It's a small startup based out of Denver that essentially allows folks to step away from the swag and send it to us. And then we take care of sending it out and putting up giveaways and stuff like that for their recipients and stuff like that. So, yeah. It's a fun little thing to do. I've been with them for just about a year now. It's a fun little startup. And then outside of that, I host the two podcasts, TopRatedMMA and the Erik Allen Show. I just changed the name. It wasn't the Bearded Biz Show for the first year and a half that I did it, and just did a name change last week. So it's now the Erik Allen Show. And combined, I've done about 300 episodes between the two shows.
Erik, let's go back. And I know a little bit of your story, and I hope people go find out, and you might touch upon some things here.
Yeah.
But what would have been your very first job? Maybe as a teenager, maybe preteen. What was the first thing that made you a dollar, or at least you attempted it?
I was 10 years old. I had a lawn mowing business. I had about 10 clients between the 11, when I was 10 and the next summer when I was 11, repeat customers. So that was my first step into the entrepreneurship world. So yeah, I had my own lawn mowing business. I would walk the lawnmower literally about a mile to my client and mow his yard. He was the furthest one. And then I hit up clients on the way back. So yeah, I did that. That was the first job that I had that was under the table, right? First paying job, like where I actually had to pay taxes. I was at McDonald's when I was 15.
Nice. It's funny, I've done, as I was telling you a little bit ago, of how many episodes, but most people are in these, lawn mowing, shoveling snow if you're up north, McDonald's, delivering papers, even some lemonade stands. And I think it's just great to remind people that people do them, did them. They're not just stories. They're not just old cliches. Why don't you go mow some lawns or something, but something that
Totally.
we can teach our kids that these are some things that you can do, and don't wait, other, depending on how people grow up and what their parents think about what is a proper line of do this, this, and this. Get a
Yeah.
job, do some of these things that are good for you, and you can look back and find that they were some character building times.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What about, why did you get it? Why did you start mowing lawns at 10?
I was saving up for Nolan Ryan baseball cards.
Nice.
I am a Nolan Ryan fan by heart and always have been since I was a kid. Actually, I got rid of all my baseball cards except for Nolan Ryan. I still hold them today. But when I was a kid, I was just like, I wanted to go and like save up money and go buy like the plaque that had his card on it, or, the fake autograph, or, baseball. And so that was where my money went. I saved up money and I would go and like down to the local baseball card shop and I'd switch, trade some cards and try to get me the best Nolan Ryan card I could.
Cards are increasing. They're becoming a little bit more popular lately. I wish I
Yeah,
held on to some of the cards that I had when I was a kid.
totally.
All the things we should have done, but we didn't.
Yep.
I'm in
Yep.
Korea now, and I want to go like to these little yard sale places and just see if there's someone, just anyone that has some baseball, basketball, whatever type of cars, and just like, oh, I'll buy that for $1. I think they're all right. What else did you do up until high school, Erik? Is there any other jobs that you did, or how long did you keep McDonald's?
No, I was only at McDonald's just for about a year. I've had a lot of jobs. I've never enjoyed working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that where like I think I've always just had this entrepreneurial spirit in me. So I've had to have the right culture for the business to keep me there long term. And I always was jumping around from job to job. I did busing at Outback, and I did bellboy
I
at
have
the
a
hotel,
question.
right? Yeah.
Outback, we have Outback here, and I think it's probably the only time I've experienced it was in Korea, so not
Yeah.
in
Oh,
Canada.
nice.
And I don't know if I had in Canada, but do you guys get what did you do in Outback? Busing only?
Yep. All I did was busing. Yep. So I just bust everything
Do you
off the
know what
table.
the wait staff thinks of people? And I think I get this right. Always asking for bread.
I don't think it's too bad.
Is
I
it? I
mean,
mean, because I even saw Jim Gaffigan joke about this the other day, and it's funny.
yeah.
People like, oh, I just want the bread. Just can I get some more? Can you cancel my main dish, please? Just some free bread. What else do you have for free there?
Right.
So what to like? I really think this is a thing because we get there like, man, this bread is good. Like as
Right.
if we don't have bread at home.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean, the Mexican restaurant, right? Like, bring on the chips and salsa. I never would sit down and eat that many chips and salsa at home, but if I'm at the restaurant, man, I'm going to chow down, right?
Oh,
So, same sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think the wait staff's probably just like, oh, whatever. Because, I mean, at least when I was there, they just had that bread just cooked up and ready to grab,
ready to
whenever they
go.
needed it. So, right. So,
Table 5 wants more bread. I don't
right.
know.
Totally.
Start spitting on it or something. So as you're having these different jobs, which are great experiences in and of themselves, what are
Sure.
you thinking for your time in high school? I know there was some difficulty, but what were you thinking in terms of a career, maybe something to get yourself? I spoke to a guy not long ago, and he said we go through these stages in life, especially when we have problems in our younger life. Is one,
Yeah.
we want to escape. Two, we want to kind of prove something to the people that were left behind or that did us harm. And then three, we start to, develop our skills, and we start to strive based on our own motivations that are a little bit more clear than just trying to run away from or prove something to other people. So as you're in high school, what are you maybe thinking is a way out for you?
So I never really was that good of a student, but there was one teacher, Mr. Lee, my sophomore through senior year. I took his class 3 years in a row, and each year was different, but he did a class called Sports and Entertainment Marketing. And then I took the second part of that in the second year. And then my senior year was on entrepreneurship. And it was the only class I ever paid attention in. And so going through that class, it really opened my eyes to like, man, I don't need to do this regular job like 9 to 5. Like I can go get in the music business, or I can go get in the sports world and things like that. And I was a big drug in high school, but that was the only class that I paid attention to. And so it kind of opened my eyes to like, I want to move to Seattle. I grew up in Washington State. I grew up in Eastern Washington, and I wanted to go to the other side of the state to go to Seattle to get in the music scene. I don't know how to play anything, but I was like, I want to go and do the business side.
I was going to say, well, what can you play? Well, I don't
Yeah, I
play
have
anything.
no
I just
idea.
wanted to get in.
Yeah, no idea how to play stuff. And so when I first moved to Seattle, the Art Institute of Seattle used to have a program that was called business music. And it was essentially just running the business side of the music stuff. And I tried to apply, couldn't get it financially, couldn't afford it. And then I was working for a CD store up there when they had the CD stores around there. It was called FYE. And somebody walked in that worked for a record label and said, they're putting up their new banners or posters up. And I was like jokingly saying, hey, how do I get your job? And he was like, oh, you got to intern. And then we have this office in downtown Seattle. And so I looked into it. And so I went to the local community college, and I found out you could take an internship class. And so I went and I paid $220 for internship class, registered, never went to a class, but I took my sheet that said I registered to Universal Records and went and applied as an intern and said, look, I'm registered for a student. And they're like, oh,
Nice.
cool. Right. And
Very,
so,
very nice.
yeah. So then I got in, I got my foot in the door. I 6 months, no pay. I was just the mailroom dude as an intern, essentially the free labor. Right. And then after 6 months, they hired me on to track sales and set up meet and greets and stuff like that. And so that was my in. It took me about 2.5 years after living in Seattle to do that. But once I got in, I mean, I was going to 2 to 3 concerts a week, even as an intern, and then open tabs. And I mean, the year before that, I was managing a band. So there's like this 2 year span where I probably went to about 175 concerts, lived this rock star lifestyle, So that was my drive, was like, I want to get into the music business. I want to do, something that's not normal. I don't want to be sitting behind a desk for the rest of my life.
That's great. How do I get your job? That's a
Right.
great question. Sir, excuse me, or
Yeah.
ma'am, how do I get your job? But I
Right.
mean, you cut to the chase and you get to the point.
Yep. Yep.
Especially, I'm registered. Look,
Right.
that's the best
I
way to
never
do
went
it.
to a single class, but I took my receipts and I paid for it. So,
It re- it
yeah.
reminds me, there was a point where I don't want to, someone look this up and think that I was wrong, but I was homeless for a few days
Okay.
in downtown Toronto, Canada.
Wow.
People don't know. And there was a concert going on. There was just people, and there was lineups of people, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna hire some security officials. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, are you from Toronto? Are you in the music scene? Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, yeah. But I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. I had maybe a bag on me, and it was only a few days, so it wasn't like what we think of homelessness. But I
Sure.
was only eating McDonald's, and I became a frontline security. Which I'm not very big, which is funny in and itself, but right at front stage for Cardinal Official, which is like a famous rapper in Canada. And
Okay.
I'm like, look at this. I'm doing very well in life. And 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 not only that, just the other day, and I'm not saying this to boast me, I was homeless and I just found something just to get myself there based
Yeah.
on your own circumstances. The other day, I emailed someone about a job, and I was telling you about this. I was interviewing, so you were gracious because I kind of pushed our interview because I was just tired from doing interviews over the last day or so.
Sure.
And I emailed someone, and they said, "Oh yeah, you could just check out our website." And I checked out their website, and they were having a job fair for their students, right? For their people that are in the program, but there was a live link.
Okay.
Like, there's a link that when it starts, you just press on the link for their students who are in their program and press there, and then you can go to the job fair. So I went through this 20, it was 2 days. So I was gonna say 24 hours, but for 2 days, they had a lesson on all of what they're going to be doing, on how to, talk to the recruiters, the people in the schools. And then the next day, the links, you just click on these different rules, the different rooms, and you can get an interview with all of these. And this is being a teacher, these different school districts. So I'm like clicking away. I got interviews, a job offer. I'm like, and that goes back to you. How do I get your job? Right. And
Yeah.
look, I'm registered sometimes, and I don't think it's being sneaky. You're just taking advantage of the situation and trying to get your best foot forward and let the cards, whatever it is, fall where they may.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
It,
Absolutely.
but getting a job, right? However you can get a job. Where did that lead for you?
I stayed with them for a year. This was during the Napster days.
Mm.
So Napster killed the music industry as few as people actually know that, but it actually shut down quite a few business offices that were involved with the record labels. Our office went from 3,200 square feet to 1,600, and we lost half the staff, and I was the bottom of the tail. And so I got let go, but my boss was actually gracious enough. It was on my 1 year anniversary actually, but he was, at the time he's like, man, we're so sorry. We got to cut and we got to let you go. He goes, but he gave me $1,000 bonus. Like he knew that I was like the surviving guy. I was working at Starbucks at night and then doing this in between, and so yeah, it was a great company before I did that for about a year. And then after that, I just went to work for Starbucks.
So as you're now in your 20s, I can
Mhm.
assume,
Yep.
are you
Yeah.
are
I
you
was in,
s- are you starting to think about your future? For me, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't, right? I think now in my 40s, I might be thinking about my future a little bit more.
right.
But for you in your 20s, what were you thinking generally about how you were going to survive? Was it Starbucks for life,
Mhm.
or you were trying to do something along the side the whole time?
I was super lost.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I got arrested for having a bong. And then between 18 and 21 years old, I moved 21 times. So living on couches, living on second and cousins' houses, and just craziness, right? And then I got to Seattle, and when I got let go from Universal Records, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was depressed. I was working Starbucks at night, and I would go home to my ghetto apartment, and I would go to Hollywood Video and literally rent like on VHS movies, and then go home and drink my 6-pack of beer, and that was my nightly routine for a few months after I got laid off. And I really had no direction, but I'd always done sales, but I'm not really good with sales, but I'm good with networking with people. So I love like fascinating with people's stories and things like that. And so I was just going to work at Starbucks for a while and kind of work my way up the chain and be the manager. And a girl had come in one night and said, "Hey, do you want to come check out this church event? And it's for college age people." And I didn't have any friends. I was depressed. So yeah, I'll go check it out, And I got there and I actually ended up knowing all these people that were there. And so it was kind of an interesting thing. It was like, it sparked this idea, like maybe I don't need to not have friends. Maybe I can actually have friends, because I didn't have any friends at the time. And about a month later, it was right before Easter, we were out partying, and then I woke up on Easter morning and I just felt God say, "Man, you're done." And I quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes, all my addictions right there. And actually called that girl up and I got her voicemail. And I said, "Hey, I just want to say happy Easter. Maybe I'll see you back at the store." And about a year later, we're married, and we'll be married 16 years this year.
The very one that brought you to church is the very one you married.
Exactly. Yeah.
That leads me to a question that I have, and I knew your part of your story, and I had an idea, so I was motivated by that. But
Yeah.
Erik, do we have a purpose? Is there any hope for us? Because you listen to, not you, but generally people listen to
Yeah.
media, what have you. We don't have a purpose. I mean, the world says we don't have a purpose. We're just specks of dust flying around aimlessly. But they're the same ones that are quick to be offended if you say something, or, and demand rights and all this. So I get,
Sure.
I feel like it's like a little pretzel. People kind of get themselves all convoluted in their own beliefs. And
Totally.
I'm like, but it doesn't matter. Why don't we just, don't anyone get me wrong here. Why don't we just kill each other, or eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die? Why does it really matter if we are specks of dust flying around? So, Erik, is there any purpose for us? Do we have any hope?
I think that everybody has a purpose in life. I'm a big fan of Ed Mylett and Tony Robbins, and they talk about life happens for us, not to us. So I don't look at anything that has happened to me in my past as like a regretful thing. It's made me the person that I am. And for me, we're never guaranteed tomorrow. So if I wake up in the morning and I can open my eyes, or I'm awake, that's a win that I got out of the way right away. I'm like, boom, I'm awake. I got a win. And then I hop out of bed, I make the bed. There's 2 wins in 10 seconds. It sets the tone for the day.
You mean
And
your
so
wife makes you make the bed?
I make my side of the bed. She sleeps in. I wake up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week. So I get up and I slide out of bed and then make my side of the bed and get
So
up.
you
But
actually get in the bed knowing, don't mess it up too much, so I can just flop it back down quite easily.
totally. Yep.
I was only saying that because my dear wife makes me make the bed. So
Oh, gotcha.
I go
Awesome.
back after she gets out and fixes it up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. No, I mean, I think everybody has a purpose, right? So like whether we feel like it or not, one thing that I did to kind of get rid of the negativity is I turned off the news like 6 years ago. Like I don't even know, like barely know what's going on in regards to like, yeah, we got a new president, but like I don't know what he's signing or anything like that. It doesn't bother me because I'm out in North Idaho, and out here we're kind of like, what's COVID? Like honestly, there's one place that requires a mask. 95% of us walk around, we don't have masks on, and the levels of cases are very low. And so we're kind of in this interesting spot where I'm not paying attention to the news. I know what I need to do to provide for my family. Like my purpose is to, break that chain of abuse and addictions and divorce and stuff like that. Like I want to leave a better legacy for my kids and have them experience something way different than what I had. And so all of us have this purpose, whether we believe it or not. Like maybe our purpose is just to make one person smile a day. Like that's my goal, is to make one person smile a day, whether that's through video like this, or if I'm at the store and they've got a name tag on, it's on there for a reason, man. Like, hey, Jim, or hey, Bob, or whatever. Like if they've got a name on there, I'm going to call them by their name because it makes them smile. They got recognized. And so like if we can go out and we can just make people smile once a day, that's a purpose. Like maybe you're lifting somebody up. You don't even know what their story is. Maybe they're having a crappy day, but if you call them by their name, they're like, "Oh, that guy, he recognized me. He knows that I'm here."
It's good to hear we have a purpose, and
Yeah,
there's hope for us, right? And you
totally.
mentioned going to church as well. I think there's a hope for people in Christ,
Yep.
right? There's a purpose. There's yeah, we're not specks of dust floating around aimlessly without any, higher being, God in particular, ruling over, sovereign, and working providentially over all things. And
Mhm.
in that, if there's not, then let's eat and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Like, there is absolutely no hope if we believed like many other people. So I wonder
Totally.
how, I mean, I live that way too. So I actually know how hopeless it is. So if you're trying to
Yeah.
find your joys at the bottom of a bottle, or, you know, the bottom of a bong, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, and it's fun. You know, I say that lifestyle is very fun, but it's
Sure.
so short term,
Yep.
right? As long as the buzz, or as long as the date, or whatever it is. Switching into, you know, you're talking about your business that you're in, where you guys are making swag, but
Yeah.
also into your podcast, and
Mhm.
into your entrepreneurial sort of roles in life. What is a process that you go through the week, or over a couple weeks period?
I keep myself busy. Like I said, I wake up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week. And once I get upstairs to my office, my personal thing is I turn on worship music and I spend time in prayer, like verbally out loud, just saying, man, thank you for my wife. Thank you for my kids, you know, for health and this house and vehicles and my job and my podcast and people that I'll interact with, and really just spend time in prayer. And then I'll read a Bible, or read the Bible. And then, spend time in that. And then I'll turn on like either a motivational speaker on YouTube, or I'll turn on a podcast that I like, or I'll jump into the Clubhouse app and, you know, just be getting motivated. And that helps me throughout my day. And then while I'm doing that, I kind of do the time blocking in the morning because I have this limited time.
Mm-hmm.
So I spend maybe 15 minutes on email responses that I need to do. And then I'll edit my shows for the week. I do all of that myself, or I'll reach out to guests and try to line up, you know, for them to come on my show or me to be a guest and line that stuff up. And then at 6:30, I go downstairs and I make my kids breakfast and I make them lunch. And then I have my breakfast, and then I come up here and I start work at 8 o'clock. And so that's my daily routine Monday through Friday. And then Saturday, I wake up at 4 a.m. as well. But it allows me to have about a 4.5 hour window where I can come up and just focus on my podcast and building out my website and courses, and lining up like speaking gigs and opportunities and things like that before my kids wake up at 8 o'clock. And then I go downstairs and call it a day.
By getting up at 4, which is a tremendous challenge for me, gives you lots of extra time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that was the one thing that I didn't want to take away from my family.
Yep.
So I know that if I get up at 4, I can have time where I'm not interrupting time with them, but I
Mm-hmm.
can still focus on something that I love. And I had a hard time. I never even drank coffee or woke up at 4 a.m. until I worked at Starbucks when I was like 22 years old. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what's coffee? And then they're like, oh, you're hired, but you have to be here at 4 a.m. And I was like, what? You know, like that's how I got like
Coffee.
introduced. Right. Yeah. So now I drink a lot of coffee, and, but I still wake up at 4 a.m. I've been doing it for about 10 years now.
What time do you go to bed?
I'm super exciting. So usually I'm passed out by about 9:30 at the
Yeah.
latest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It feels good to go to bed early now, eh? When you,
totally.
especially when you're young, you know, you're getting older, when like, hey, going to bed when we used to go out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
10
Because I'm
o'clock.
41 right now, and you know, I'm still, I feel like I'm young, but yeah, I know that age is catching up. I'm 41 and still active, you know. So
So you have the Top Rated MMA podcast and the Erik Allen Show, as well
yep,
as your full-time job. How did you
correct.
begin that, or either one of those?
So TopRatedMMA started as an apparel company in 2012. My wife and I came up with the idea. Like, I've always been into combat sports and things like that. And I was sitting at home and I was like, man, I want to, maybe I should start an apparel company. So I borrowed some money from my brother-in-law and helped us get going. He borrowed like $2,500 or something like that, and started to come up with a name. And my wife came up with the name Top Rated MMA. And this was like during the tap out days when it was really big, just wear the tap out shirts. And
Mm-hmm.
so we said, how do we make ourselves different? And still to this day, we are 100% American made MMA apparel company. I actually have my own heat press now, and I have my own hat press. So I do everything myself now, where before I was like outsourcing everything, and it cost me a lot of money. And I made a lot of bad business decisions, wasn't making any money. And in 2015, I actually put it on Craigslist. I said, who wants to buy this business? And I put up the, like, I didn't know if people would buy it. I just like was like, hey, here's this
Yeah.
business. I'm interested in selling it. One guy called me and he was talking to me about buying it. And in that call, I said, no, I'm not going to sell it. And so what I did was I hung up and I rebranded, and I spent the next 6 months, like, just trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do with this business?
Mm.
So I had a rebranding, I had a new website, and I said, I'm going to fire it up as the Top Rated MMA podcast. And so my idea around it was like, I just want to talk to fighters. Like, they're cool
Mhm.
dudes. I want to talk to them, and I want to find out why they want to step into a cage and get punched. And it's kind of like entrepreneurs. Like, why do we want to become entrepreneurs to get punched in the face? Because we get all the no's and rejections and all
Mhm.
that stuff. It's sort of things, you know, hopefully not physically getting punched, but, you know, mentally we get punched in the face all the time as entrepreneurs. And so, um, that's how the Top Rated MMA podcast started. 2017, I did almost 100 shows, in the walk-in closet, like I said, and humbly, it's considered the #1 MMA podcast out here in the Northwest where I'm at now. And in 2018, I came across a guy named Ed Mylett online and just started binge watching all of his stuff. I was like, holy crap, man, this guy is firing me up. And so I like bought his book and, started reading through it. And at the end of 2018, he issued a challenge to his about 1 million followers on Instagram at the time. And he said, hey, submit a 1-minute story to me of what you're passionate about, what's your drive? Like, why do you want to be successful? So I submitted that. And about 2 months later, he announced me as the winner. So I am Ed Mylett's Max Out Challenge winner. And to my knowledge, he only did that challenge one time.
Nice.
And so I won it and was able to get a phone call with him. It was a 20-minute phone call, but we ended up talking about 30 minutes. And his team said I could record it. And so I actually recorded part of it and then released part of that show or part of that conversation as episode 12 of the Beard to Biz show, is what I launched my other podcast as, but it's now the Erik Allen Show. But yeah, so then ever since then, I had Sean Whalen on prior to that. And I had Vincent Roca, who's an actor, on my show prior to that. And then it's just opened the door to just Cooley and Brad Lee and Tim Storey and, Jim the Rookie Morris and, Dr. Greg Reed was on last week. And so, yeah, it's just been amazing.
I like the idea of, especially from you're kind of transferring the idea over from MMA into business of getting yourself punched in the face. And why would someone want to, I mean, people credit that quote to Tyson, but I don't know if it was him who said it. Everyone's a fighter. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Right. Yeah.
Along those lines. And that works in business and in the ring as well. Did you happen to see, and Joe Rogan, that there's the podcast king, I guess.
Yeah.
His most recent, because we didn't have Spotify here. And when he switched over to Spotify, I couldn't watch his podcast in Korea. And so they just got Spotify. And so the first episode I watched was just the other day was it Francis Nananu?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Did you happen to check that out? Or
I didn't watch it.
No, I don't know how many times he's ever told his story previous to that, but this is what I like about your podcast, because you're getting the stories from these MMA fighters, and his story is amazing, right? It's just hardcore coming from Cameroon. It took him 14 months to get from Cameroon to France by going through the ocean, getting arrested, right? Just beat up, going over barbed wire fences, starving, begging, 14 months straight up trying to get somewhere, and he ended up in France. And then he finally, after a few weeks, got into the MMA. And just check that episode out. But it's the heart of what you're saying. That's what I like about Joe Rogan, is because he has, and it kind of upset me for a while, not really upset, is getting comedians on there. Like, why do you get so many comedians on there? But I'm starting to gain a deep appreciation for fighters and comedians, because there's so much to their story that you don't understand, but the dedication and drive to be perfect, to be the best they can be at the top of the game. And it's so hard, and you don't see that. You see a comedian, oh, you're not funny, or your fighter gets punched in the face, like, no, come on, you're a bum, like a top-rated athlete or something. Oh, you missed the ball, and we're just watching from our sofa or something. But the work and dedication that goes into that is surely inspiring.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I do is I like to hear the stories. My one question that I ask on both my shows, the very first question is, where did you grow up and what was childhood like for you? And a lot of them came from crazy backgrounds and some of them didn't. But for me, I like to understand the why, like how did they get through that mindset of failures and things like that? And, entrepreneurs, they're just like anybody else. They just was able to sustain, like go through that damage, go through those failures and continue to fight on, where they didn't give up, right? They just kept going. And, so that's for me, like I do work 2 podcasts and I still have the full-time job, but my end goal is to walk away from the full-time job and earn enough money through podcasting and public speaking and things like that, that I can, support my family and walk away from the full-time job.
In trying to balance this out with a full-time job, a couple podcasts and other ideas that you have, what are some difficulties that you face? But on the other side of that, what is some satisfaction you get that keeps you going with it?
I mean, it's definitely tiring sometimes. I mean, I've released a show every single week since January 1st of 2019. And or I guess since all of 2020. And I think I got really consistent with my Bearded Biz show in early 2019, but every week for Top Rated since 2019. So 2 shows a week I'm releasing. I edit myself. And then so that's what I'm doing is, I do that. And so, yeah, it's tiring. And some days I'm like, oh man, I got to edit another show, or, oh, that show's 40 minutes long, man. That's going to take me forever to edit. But then I release it and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, cause I don't watch my shows until I go to edit them. Like
Mhm.
I'll record them. And then I'm like, like, I'm paying attention when I'm listening to my guests, but then when I get into like actually edit, that's where it really sinks in. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
missed that, or yeah, that's all right. And so it's so
absolutely.
refreshing for me to go, yeah, that was a great conversation.
I got to meet that guy. Oh wait,
Right? You
it was
totally,
me. It was me in the
totally right.
conversation. And the funny thing is, then you're watching it. Oh, I missed that avenue to go down that path, right? And that's what
Mhm.
learning about listening, right?
Yep,
And just
totally.
and one letting the guest speak. And I know I'm explaining some things here, and I don't usually do it that much, but I think it gives us an idea, a bouncing board or a soundboard, and but that's what you get editing, and you get in there like, oh, I should have asked that follow-up question. I should have
Yep.
asked this. You should have done this. So that is the difficulty that you have. And what about the satisfaction that you have?
I think it's the deepened relationships that I get with my guests. So what I typically do with my guests is, one, especially these guys like Ed Mylett and Bedros Keuilian and all these Jim the Rookie Morris, is every 3 or 4 months I send them a video and I don't ask for anything. I just say, hey, I'm checking in. I hope that you're doing awesome. I hope you had a great Christmas, and praying blessings over you and your family and your business for 2021. And if there's anything that I can do for you, let me know.
Mhm.
And then you get guys like Bedros Keuilian who literally sends me a voicemail back and says, man, thank you so much for sending that. It's so awesome that you did that. Like, if there's anything that I can do for you, you let me know. And I'm like, whoa, he's saying
Yeah,
now I can reach out to him if I need something. Right. And
yeah.
so, it's for me, it's about taking care of customers. I watched this video of Bedros Keuilian and Craig Ballantyne talking about networking, how to network correctly and be successful with that. And when Bedros Keuilian wanted to understand or get to know Andy Frisella more, he'd kind of like mingled around with him, but he'd never really connected with him. He reached out to his assistant, assistant, and said, hey, what size shoe does he wear? And so Bedros Keuilian wears Chuck Taylors that are high tops with black laces. And he said he sent a pair to Andy Frisella. And he said, hey, man, here's a pair. I like these. I wear them all the time. So if you look at Instagram, he's always got these shoes on. So when I had Bedros on my show, I reached out to his assistant and I said, hey, what size shoe does Bedros wear? And it's like size 14 or something like that. And so what I did is I immediately went to Converse and I ordered a pair of Chuck Taylor high tops with black laces, and I had them sent to my house. And then I autographed the tongue of the shoes. And I wrote a note to Bedros and I said, hey, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me on my show. You're a world changer. By the way, you have the only pair in the world of Chuck Taylors autographed by myself. Hopefully we can talk again soon. And I mailed that to him. And then his team like reached back out and like, how did you know that's the shoes that he's wearing? It's like, because I was paying attention. Like, he
Yeah.
literally said this, So now I've got this in with him. And so, yeah, it was just if people pay attention, then you can really, for me, it's all about in the follow-up.
How did you mentioned skills earlier, and what are some of the skills that you've had to develop as you got better at your podcast? You start reaching out and learning these sort of strategies so that you can be successful.
Yeah, I'm still learning on a daily basis. I feel like, as much as great it is that I've had these awesome names on my show, like I'm still learning how to perfect the technique. And, I'm still using Anchor, which is free. Like, I just use the
Mhm,
free app right now because I don't have a budget that's generating enough
mhm,
money for me to go, yeah, I want to put into Lipson. Right. So, I use the free method. And so, it's really working on my skill set of that, like how to promote it. Like, my website or my show goes out to, all kind of audio formats, to video formats and all that stuff. And I'm perfecting the audio or the editing version of that so
mhm,
much. Like, every day it's learning how to communicate better. I'm following a lot of people on Instagram that, hey, if you do this, then it'll help your show get, help boost in views and stuff like that. And so my show actually got ranked at 133 on the Apple podcast chart in the month of January, and for entrepreneurship. And so that was a huge success for my show. And I was like, man, okay, I took these techniques that Zachary Babcock was doing, and I'm
mhm.
like, dude, I'm going to copy exactly what this guy's doing. And so I did that, and sure enough, I got ranked. That guy's a stud.
Yeah, there's lots of methods that we can follow, and there's lots of advice out there that is sound and free too. right?
Yep.
Very helpful advice that can help us in whatever industry we are doing, whatever way that we can perfect what it is that we're doing. Do
Yep.
you, Erik, have any advice for people thinking of yourself as a lawn mowing boy, right? Or at McDonald's, your kind of first couple of jobs, or switching careers as you get older, switching into different things. Do you have any advice for people who are getting into work, whether it's their first job or another job?
Over the years, I've learned that if you're a good employee, you can be an excellent entrepreneur. And I would say whatever job that you go for, put it all in, because they're putting everything in you to come and work for them. And if you're an entrepreneur just mowing yards, then put everything that you can just to mow that yard. Like make sure that it looks awesome. Like I didn't do that as much in my growing up. I would get these jobs and then I wouldn't like them and I would just quit. I would, if it got tough, I'm like, oh, I'm done. I don't want to do this. Right. Like, I mean, I've done everything from selling cars to being a bellman to working a Blockbuster to selling suits. I was a maid at a hotel for one day and I got fired because I couldn't make the bed right. Like just like everything that I could to try to make money growing up. I was just like, what is my skill set? Because I didn't know. And then I think over the last, well, probably 5 years or so, since really thinking about doing a podcast, I was like, I love talking to people, and I've always done sales. So I've been in customer success and sales and stuff like that throughout my career in some shape, way or form, And so I feel like that's always been my skill, but I would say like for new people looking for jobs, like find something that you're passionate about. And it's not always about the money. Like, yeah, money's great, but I could go somewhere and get paid more money than I make now at my full-time job. But are they going to allow me to do this or have fun with my family and like be the culture that I want? That's what really is important. And I didn't look at it like that before. Before I was like, oh, give me the money. If someone else paid me $2 more an hour, I was like, peace out, And so I think if you're looking at a job, just find something that you're passionate about. And if if it makes you happy, then you'll work up, the money will come. Right.
I say housekeeper. I was a housekeeper as well when
Oh, you
learning how to make beds. But
nice.
you needed that experience for your wife's the other side of the bed, and you're using it, right? Even though
Yep.
one day you learned that one skill that was necessary to get you through your
Totally.
marriage. Is there a character trait that you've seen kind of bubble up, even as you've interviewed people in business, entrepreneurs, but also in MMA fighters, where there's just something about them, something about the fighting scene that you see, that there's a character trait that they all have that is admirable?
They realize that they're never the smartest person in the room. Like they know that they can always learn more. And it doesn't matter that the difficulties that they've gone through, that they realize that if they have something in their mind that they're passionate about, like that's what will be the success for them. It's not always about the money or anything like that, but characteristic wise, like people who are tough mentally, if you're mentally tough, I think that's what gets you through life. And if you can be mentally tough in anything, whether that's being a newspaper guy, which I did as well, like, like do that well, and then it'll move on to bigger and better things. But I think if you have that mental tough game, they're all, you're able to get through those failures and not just quit. Right. So it's that no quit attitude. I've seen that from the majority of people that have been on my shows.
From my understanding, you are not a fighter yourself in particular. You found yourself in a couple of bouts, but not in fighting. So where do you place exercise in your life, but also education for the listeners, of whether it's formal or informal education?
I think college can be for the right person. I went to college for a year, didn't really like it, and for me, I ended up quitting, and that may or may not have been a struggle, or that I know it was a struggle for some jobs because they're like, oh, you don't have a degree. And I didn't really care about that. I was like, okay, I'll go find someone else that will hire me. But for education wise, I think school can be good. I also think for exercise wise, for me, when before I turned 40, I said I wanted to get rid of the dad bod by the time I'm turned 40. So the year of 2019, early on the year, I said, I'm going to get rid of this dad bod and work out every day. And then guess what? My 40th birthday came and I still look the same. Didn't work out. And then so early in 2020, I said, that's it. I'm going to be the most ripped 41-year-old that I know. And so in March, I actually started doing 45 minutes of cardio every day. So I started doing it. I'm like, I'm going to do this for 90 days straight. And I'm going to cut out all the crap and I'm going to eat right. And I'm going to do this for 90 days straight. Didn't have a goal weight in mind. Well, sort of, I guess I was at 199 was my height. And I was like, I want to get down to 175. And so what I did was I started working out 6 days. I went and I missed a day. And I was like, dang it, I cannot believe I already missed a day. I'm not even a week into this thing. So I started back up. I'm like, that's it. I'm gonna do it. And I went 90 days straight of cardio, 45 minutes a day. And I watched what I was eating, and I lost 30 pounds.
Nice.
And then I continued that streak into like mixing weightlifting and exercise up to like 165 days. So I'm still down about 15 pounds from what I was. And, I'm feeling great for sure.
It's a struggle, isn't it? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I like McDonald's.
Yeah.
You might not have liked working there, but I surely like eating it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And last
I'm a
night
sweet tooth.
oh yeah, I had some chocolate yesterday. It was so delicious, and some chips. My dear wife and our 2 kids were gone out. I'm like, what's in the kitchen for me?
Right.
But then okay, I better go exercise today. That's what you mentioned, a goal of wanting to get out of your full-time job and make this full-time. What is your overarching goal for Top Rated MMA and your Erik Allen Show?
I mean, I think I'll always have a podcast some way, shape, and form. But I think for me, like I now this month, I've had 2 speaking gigs. It was my first 2 speaking gigs, public speaking gigs. My first paid speaking gig was last week. And then yesterday I spoke for a huge event out here in Idaho called Rise X, and it spoke on mindset. And so I think I definitely want to go down that path of being a speaker, a motivational speaker, telling my story and working on mindset and things like that, but also coaching people, which I've never really done before. But I know that there's a lot of people come to me and asking questions about how do I get started on podcasting, or how do I have this right mindset and things like that. So we're actually in the process right now of launching some courses on my website soon that will walk people through on how to launch their podcast in 7 days. And then if they want to continue to work with me, they can have a coaching, session with me and things like that. So we're going to be launching that soon. So really taking my business to full-time coaching, speaking. I also do like video promos for brands and stuff like that. And then I do like audio narrator for books and stuff like that.
So that brings you into the Erik Allen Media aspect of it. So that's going to be the overarching umbrella. Is there anything about you or Erik Allen Media that people may not understand, but by understanding this, they can have a better appreciation for the work you're bringing to the table?
I think that they can, they may not know that, I might look scary sometimes with a beard. My wife thinks it's funny, or I might look homeless sometimes, but guess what? I'm still a hard worker and I still make things happen. And so, actually a lot of the brands that work with me are beard product companies. They send me their products and I do videos for them, and then they go and put it out on Amazon. And apparently my wife's like, dude, you're Amazon famous. So I don't, apparently there's a few pictures of me out on Amazon somewhere, but that's what I like is being able to connect with those guys. And I think if people, maybe they look at me and like, well, he's probably not a professional, and maybe they don't know my story, right? It's like, so some people look at me and there's a lot of people, they have this first judge, like look at someone like, well, I don't know his story, but he's doing this or that, and he's all about ego and stuff like that. I'm not really, but I know what I want, and I want to be, a full-time entrepreneur. And for me, my goal is to have a property where I can pee off my front porch and not see anybody, right? Like that's the goal for me. So that's what keeps me driving, is like, someday I'll have that.
I interviewed someone the other day, a pretty famous gold medal winner for Canada anyway, and his front patio is a lake and mountains in the background. So I'm pretty sure he can meet that goal. It'd be pretty good. Ross Ribliotti, snowboarder.
Okay.
You mentioned your story. You mentioned understanding you. What is the adversity that you have faced in your life that, it kind of brings you down maybe sometimes, but it also motivates you, but you can also use that to encourage others in the adversity that they face in their work?
I think as a young kid, once my parents got divorced, I saw a lot of, abandonment issues. When my mom decided to move us to Montana with her boyfriend to Stevensville, Montana, population 1,200 people, they rented a house that had 3 bedrooms, and there was one for her and her boyfriend, one for my little brother who was a few months old, and one for my sister. And they said, Erik, you get to live out in the garage, and Montana gets pretty cold during the winter. So I had a, a fireplace on my side of the garage, but then at the foot of my bed was a plastic sheet that separated my room to the truck that pulled in. So it was pretty cold. So, abandonment issues of that, and, watching a physically abusive, relationship with my mom and her boyfriend, and then having to fight him when I was 13 years old and bust his face open with, cast iron pan and things like that. And I think addictions and things like that, I've had to battle, but, rejection, abandonment, abuse, like all of that, like that's all the stuff that, like, I look back on, I'm like, yeah, I had to go through that, but I'm stronger because of it.
How do you use your story to encourage other people where, some people are fighting the memories, coming
Totally.
back up and in little instances that can still spark it. And you mentioned addiction and stuff, and I know that as well. And there's sometimes temptations that they don't ever always go away, no matter what they are. Maybe for
Yep.
some people, I don't know all people, but I know for myself, you could see something, smell something, experience something, and like, whoo, where did that come from? It reminds
Sure.
me of a guy when I used to drive a limousine and he worked with me, and he's like, "Do you know what? Do you know what I did? I haven't smoked cigarettes in 20 years." For an example, I have nothing against smoking cigarettes for anyone listening,
Sure.
but just the idea of temptation. He quit for 20 years. He said, "Do you know what? This morning I woke up and I was all in a panic because when he smoked, he used to leave his cigarettes, how people did back in the 80s, I guess. I don't know. It
Right.
leave a pack of smokes right in his front. Maybe people still do it now." And he
Yeah.
said, "I was in a panic. I was looking, I couldn't find my smokes." He goes, "I haven't had a cigarette in 20 years, but that temptation came to him again." So how do
Wow.
you encourage people in whatever it is they're facing, whether stories like yourself or similar stories, to encourage them in their work?
So I'll say this: I didn't share my story till I was 39 years old. So I'm
Hmm.
41 now. I just held on to it, never did anything. And once I decided to release that story, it was a huge weight off my shoulders. And then I realized that, well, I guess to get away from all the addictions and things like that, or avoid those temptations, is you have to hang around with the right tribe, right? So Ed Mylett talks about, if you're walking around at 87 degrees, go find guys who are walking around 120 degrees and hang with them, because they're going to automatically lift you up.
Hmm.
And so you got to find the right people that can surround yourself with, that can lift you up and be there and accountable for you and help you through those temptation days, or those bad moments, right? Like, we want to say we have a bad day, but we're probably just having a bad
Moments.
15 minutes, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so, like, we want to find those people that can lift us up and surround us, like, that we can just jump in their circle at any point, or text somebody or call somebody that we know that will respond back to us, right? And so it's about connecting and putting yourself in uncomfortable places, like, get uncomfortable to go meet new people, but then all of a sudden, like, that's your tribe. Like, the more that you do that, the more comfortable it will be. For me, I go to a networking, not a networking event, it's called a fireside chat. And every single month out here, it's all these brand new entrepreneurs, and I don't know anybody. I know the one guy who hosts it, and that's it. And I go there,
Mhm.
and every single time I've gone, I've met a new person, and I just go sit in the front row and I meet new people. And so, but by doing that, if you're struggling with addictions and stuff like that, step out of that comfort zone and go find somebody that that you can connect with. But I think the more people that you can surround yourself with that are doing what you want to be doing, whether that's being sober, that they don't smoke, maybe they're making $1 million a month, like, go find those people and hang with them.
Mhm. Absolutely. Eric, is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you would just like to mention, whether it's through Erik Media, Erik Allen Media, or your podcasts, or just something that you've experienced in life that we haven't touched upon?
No, I mean, we've pretty much touched on everything. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm more than happy. I love connecting with new people. So if people can,
How do
they
they
can,
connect with you? Yeah.
just through Instagram is my main thing that I hang out with. That's my main platform, I guess. Erik G. Allen is my account on there. And then they can shoot me a DM. I love connecting with people on there. And then Erik Allen Media is my website. So they can book me for speaking gigs, or, coaching, or any of that stuff too.
Eric, I have one final question for you, and that is, why do you work?
I work because, one, I want to stay in shape because it helps me mentally grow. And, but I also work because I want to provide for my family. And I work extremely hard to make sure that my wife does not have to work. She gets to stay home with the kids, and she works way harder than me. Like, she like takes care of everything in the house, but I want
Mhm.
to make sure that she can spend as much time with them as possible. And so, what drives me to work, why do I work, is because I want to be able to provide for my wife so that she does not have to work a full-time job, where she can just focus on being a mom and host and make our home our home. And so that's my number one drive of why I work.
Erik Allen with Erik Allen Media, Top Rated MMA, the Erik Allen Show, entrepreneur. I thank you. I appreciate the time that you've given me, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor. This was a great show. Thank you for the great conversation.
I'm BrianVee. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Erik for coming on. Check him out, the Erik Allen Show and Top Rated MMA. As for me, like, share, comment, I guess you don't have to like, you can dislike, but subscribe as well if you like. And I'm on all major podcast hosts such as Google, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and all of those other ones that are out there. If you want to be a guest or you know someone that would like to be a guest, contact me at WhyWeWork, BrianVee@gmail.com. WhyWeWork, BrianVee@gmail.com. And I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work.